morning and happy Thursday. Welcome to Beware of Spoilers. I am Adam with a splitting headache, which does dovetail with the first topic conversation today. Schedule shifts again. Now, I know I said this year we're going to try and be more, good about sticking to a set schedule and being like, okay, we're going to do this day, we're going to, all that kind of stuff. I know we said that, but a bunch of unforeseen stuff has happened, and then on top of that, too, I got sick. So that's what happened the last 2 days. I had a very bad stomach virus, probably the worst stomach virus I've had since I was a kid. And I'm not going to get into the details about it. It was just not pleasant for anyone involved. That was not good. I pulled a muscle as a result. So I'm not 100% yet, but I'm not, what's the one for him? I'm not, dying of the stomach virus anymore. It's one of those things, I don't want to, over or undersell it, but, I left work early to go to the doctor about it, because it was so bad. I can't stay. I have to go to a doctor and see what's going on here. My boss was like, yeah, sure, go ahead. So I go to the doctor, and the doctor said, look, you gotta, do X, Y, and Z. I'll give you this medication for it, but if you don't improve within 24 hours, go to the emergency room. And that first day, it was just, I didn't sleep at all overnight. It was not good. But here we are. I'm mostly better now, which is a vast improvement. So, all things are better. Sometimes it hurts to breathe in too deeply because, again, pulled a muscle. Not going to get too detailed about what caused that. Anyway, I forgot what I was saying because I stopped to answer a text. Either way, schedule will be amended slightly. So, tomorrow morning we will be doing, what was that show called? We're going to be doing Beware of Spoilers about Sometimes I Think About Dying, the Sundance movie. Because part of what this issue caused was that while I was, in fact, laying in bed, I couldn't actually watch anything because I was so sick. I couldn't get comfortable. I couldn't stay in one position. I couldn't do any of that. So, needless to say, not a pleasant situation all around. And then on top of that, as you can hear from, the way I'm talking, staying still, even that wasn't really a comforting thing, considering I now have these several pulled muscles in my chest. But anyway, so I couldn't watch that. I was going to watch it last night, and I started falling asleep while I was laying there. I was like, you know what, maybe I'll watch, just do the Bad Batch, because that's only a half hour. And then we'll just do this tonight. So we'll do Sometimes I Think About Dying, we'll do tonight. I'll watch it tonight, and then tomorrow morning, we'll do a review of it in the morning. And then, we'll do, what's the one after that? I'm gonna record the 30-minute reviews today, where we discuss the Oscar nominations. That one I'm gonna record today anyway, because that I can do reasonably quick and have that up today instead of yesterday. We also have, there was another one we had to do. What was it called? This other movie. Women Talking we were going to do at some point this weekend. I'll have to look at the schedule, see what football games are when, and adjust my ticket accordingly for when I can go see that. And then we will do a catch-up on National Treasure: Edge of History at some point as well. So we're gonna catch up. We're gonna catch up and get back on track with everything. It's just been a rough week or so. But we're here to talk about the Bad Batch, and I think this week does kind of highlight one of my issues with the way that Disney has kind of handled Star Wars, and it's this idea that they're trying to have their cake and eat it too with the old EU and the new EU, and it doesn't quite mesh properly 100% of the time. I would say there's a good amount of the time where it doesn't mesh properly at all, which is fine if one is canon and one's not. But the minute you try to say that both are canon, you end up with this issue where, what's it called? Where you're trying to appease both sides of the coin, and at the end of the day, they don't mesh properly. And I think this episode has one of those things where it's like they go to this place that's, that's over 1,000 years old, and it's like, this is before the Jedi, and it's like, no. In your own continuity, that's not true. Unless it's like, because the issue is, like, there are certain things that still exist within the continuity that have been recanonized through things. For example, the Jedi Mandalore War has been recanonized. That happened in the new continuity. Like things like the story of Darth Bane and all of that. That stuff has all been recanonized to some extent in the new canon. I think the problem is they're trying to keep that in while building this new lore to it, and they don't quite mix. And I think part of the problem is that the old canon was told over the course of 3 decades. And a lot of it's contradictory, a lot of it is it's just kind of, overlapping and telling some of the same stories and doing that kind of thing. And we have things where the Clone Wars are misrepresented at times, and it's just kind of, interesting little tidbits that happen as a result. But the issue is, by and large, in this new continuity where everything's supposedly equal, including what they're recanonizing, I think that the issue becomes their timescales don't quite line up. Because, I've said it before about the High Republic, which is the ongoing publishing initiative with comics and books and audio adventures and all that kind of stuff. Those books take place about, I think it's 100 years before the Skywalker saga. So if those books take place 100 years before the Skywalker saga, then what is the, then if that's the case, then why are they waiting that long to try to reintegrate the Outer Rim? And then on top of that, why are we moving backwards? Besides the fact that you want to build toward a story coming down the line, why are we working backwards to get to that point? And it's an interesting question, and I don't think they've quite answered that yet. But I think that's something key they have to kind of address, and they've made no effort to yet. There's also the question of what about that? How does that relate to the war with Mandalore? Because that's the other issue, is that we have this war with Mandalore that was recanonized in Rebels and reestablished, that it happened. But if it happened hundreds of years before, thousands of years before, because think about the scales that we used in the old EU, where we were using scales of thousands of years. If that's the case, and we're using scales of thousands of years, then 1,000 years before Revenge of the Sith is not, that long ago in the grand scheme of things. I don't think we even get back to the creation of the Darksaber, if that's the case. I could be wrong on that. But yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, why, like, it just feels weird that it's like, this is 1,000 years old. It's, before the Jedi, and it's like, alright, cool. And I get what they're doing, is they're aiming for an episode that's like, oh, this is going to give us some cool information about some of the origins of some of the more mystical forces in the galaxy. I'm all for that, and I'm all for learning more about the Wills and all of that. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. What I am saying is that if you're gonna do this, and you're going to, and I think this is something that Josie and I addressed in a past episode of 30-minute reviews, way back in 2015, back toward the beginning, when the podcast first started. We talked about ditching the old continuity. Everything is not canon anymore, and then we will reestablish what is canon based on what we want to use. Which, on one hand, makes sense because, again, like I said, the established canon of Star Wars bullshit was so vast, far-reaching, and quite honestly ridiculous that it's unruly, and it's not right to sit there and try and parse it out and be like, well, what are we going to keep? What are we not going to keep? So just ditch it all, start fresh. It does kind of make sense. The problem comes in with all of this. The problem comes in when you do that, and then you still have continuity issues after saying we're ditching this for a more streamlined continuity. That's where the problems come in. Because at that point, when you say you're going to streamline the continuity, and you're still making these weird decisions with continuity, it's just kind of like, well, then what was the point of that besides to get at paying royalties? Like, because that's really all it was, is that you're going to republish the books, or not publish the books anymore, except in the Legends banner, like, because then it's like you're not going to sell as many because they're not canon anymore. Like, that's what it is. Like, I just don't understand it. I'll be honest. I don't understand why this continues to happen. And I think part of it is definitely Filoni. And I think that if Filoni was a woman, Filoni would get a lot more shit for this. For his flippant disregard for other media that's not his. His knack for picking and choosing what he wants to do where, and ignoring the rest. And if it was Kathleen Kennedy who was doing this in a more hands-on way, she'd be attacked weekly on YouTube channels with people with ridiculous names. And I think that that's something that kind of, it's something that doesn't need to, like, that's the thing I've noticed too, is that if it's a woman showrunner on a Star Wars thing, they will get attacked for anything that happens on the show. Something goes wrong on the show, they get attacked. They do something they don't like, they get attacked. Anything that doesn't happen properly, they get attacked. Meanwhile, if it's a guy, they just won't talk about it. You don't see vitriolic hate pieces about the Bad Batch because it's more in line with Favreau and Filoni. So why would they do vitriolic hate pieces about those things? Because it's these two guys that they love making them, and they're saving Star Wars. So you end up with that. But the issue is, like, you got to apply it evenly. If you're going to have that problem, apply it evenly to anyone who creates anything Star Wars related. And again, it's like, it all depends on how seriously you take it. For me, I would like for them to I think for me it's just the issue of, we're throwing everything out, don't worry, everything's getting thrown out, we're not going to have the old, system anymore. And then for them to do that, and then for there still to be this confusion because they don't want to throw everything out, they just want to throw most things out and I don't know, it just kind of feels off to me. But yeah, I think that just about covers it for this week's episode. I like that Wanda Sykes' character did get a little bit more screen time, and she got a chance to develop herself. She feels kind of like a proto-Aphra. I am a little disappointed that Aphra has not made an appearance in animation or in live action yet. I do really like her character. But like I call her proto-Aphra in that she's before, like, Aphra is too young to be a an entity in this show. But I would like for her to have shown up at some point, not necessarily in this show, because I think she'd be a kid. Because how old is she? Like in her early 20s, around the time of A New Hope. She's like Luke's age, so she'd be a little kid now. At the time of the Bad Batch. But still, like her personality and all of that kind of feels like Aphra. Like the way she acts, the way she carries herself, her kind of know-it-all sensibilities. Like she's got an arrogance to her that's endearing. Like all of that kind of feels like Aphra. To the point where it's like, did they want to use Aphra? And it's like, no, the timeline doesn't line up for you to do that. Which is a distinct possibility. I wouldn't rule it out. But yeah. It's a very interesting show, and I would like to just mention, like, that was, I think, the biggest issue I had with the show, was that it made me want an Aphra show. And that was the other thing too, is that, like, they're doing so much with continuity, yet not enough, because this show, like, this episode kind of feels like where they are with Hidden Empire and all the comic stuff. Where it's like, in the comic, you have Aphra going after, like, these relics to establish and you know, create a universe, and that's kind of what's going on in the comic. And for that to be there, and for it to be kind of reflected on this show, is interesting, but it doesn't do quite enough, I don't think. But yeah, it would be interesting if they did a little more in that regard. Maybe connect it a little bit better. And it might get more people to read the comic. Who knows? But yeah, I think we'll wrap up there for today. I am a little run down. Probably has everything to do with my continued malady. And I am going to do the episode with the Oscar picks tonight, or this afternoon. I have to go to Target and get some Tylenol. But yeah, we'll wrap up there for today. So, until our next episode, have a great rest of your week.